years from now about something dangerous? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it, please hit that like button. It's a small action, but it makes a huge difference. And don't forget to share this video on social media to help grow our Awoken family. But for now, stay safe, stay well, and stay curious. Until next time.
All reactions in these videos are for entertainment purposes only. Any advice given should be treated as entertainment as well. Viewers are responsible for conducting their own research into any subjects discussed in the videos before taking any action based on the information provided.